All right. Well, let's call this meeting to order. I think the first thing on our agenda, let's just sort of run around the room and introduce everybody, I guess. Let me just call it out to make it easier. So, Robin,
Uh, yes, I'm here, or do you want me to call?
I just was going to say who you are.
Okay, Rob Lee, Administrative Assistant, Program Assistant for Workforce.
Okay, Hannah,
Hannah Gregory, Quality Control Manager at Bluegrass.
Rolando,
Business Service Manager.
great. John Doherty.
Hey, John, a little bit of everything. Good morning.
Okay. Good morning, Mike Riley.
Interim workforce director for about 6.5 more hours. Maybe we're interviewing today. An HR director for the Bluegrass ad.
Great. David Detlinger.
David Dellinger, Executive Director of the Bluegrass ad.
Jennifer Hayes.
Jennifer Hayes, Direct Service Provider.
Colin.
Colin Mosley, WIOA Accounting Officer.
Dolly.
Dolly Holland, Vice Chair.
And Matt Montgomery, Treasurer. So first item on the agenda that is if I could get a motion to approve the minutes from last time.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Dolly, can I ask for a second?
As soon as I unmute, second.
Second, outstanding. That is approved. And then next we have the finance reports for August and September. So Colin, you want to take us through that? You may be on mute.
Yep, there we go. So on, if you follow through to page 4 on the financial committee packet, you'll see August. At the end of August, we on our overall budget, we were 12% expended, and that's lower than the prior year at that same time, which was at 19%. Our admin was at 17%, as compared with 21% in the prior year. Our adult expenditures were 11% expended, and that is compared with 33% expended in August of the prior year. Dislocated worker was at 8% expended, and that's compared with 17% the prior year. Our youth expenses were at 15%, where they were at 19% in the prior year. And then our work experience that is required on our youth program funds was at 8% expended in August. And if anybody has any questions about that, just let me know.
Yeah. I don't have any questions.
All right, and then I will swoop on down to September, and that is on page 10. At the end of September, we were at 18% expended on our total budget. That is compared with 31% where we were at in the prior year. Our admin was at 25%. That is compared with 28% in the prior year. Adult expenditures was at 15%. And we were comparing that with 54% at the same time last year. Dislocated worker was at 14%. That's compared to 30% in the prior year. Youth was at 22%. And we were at 30% at the same time last year. And then our work experience went up about 3%. So we were at 11% total expended on our youth program funds. And so if you take a look at the chart there, you can see the blue line at the top. It shows how our fiscal year 23 actual expenditures worked out. We capped out at about 4.6 million, and then in orange, you can see that's where we are currently right now. We're at just under 18% expended at 17.77, but for the purposes of the report, it's rounded up to 18. If we spend every dollar that we've got budgeted, we're going to be at 2.9 million, something like that, and that's what our trend line is showing. So far, we have spent less than if we divided it evenly across all 12 months, we have spent less than what that total is. So we've been very conservative so far, as we try to be responsible ahead of our next
How
year.
much of an impact would the if we had a director as a separate salary, sort of total cost, does that bring us up to more of a normal percentage or closer to a normal percentage? Is that the biggest change?
That would be a big difference, indeed. Yes.
Okay.
But
So
let's,
one of the issues with that was when we looked at bringing on a director for the July 1 period, we technically wouldn't have had enough of an allocation of administrative funds to fund that director position for the first half of this year. That was one of the reasons of holding off is, until the first of the year to bring that director position on, so that we would have the administrative funds to do that after January 1st.
yep. And as you can see on the September report, we are at 25% expended on our admin at that point. And we got 9 more months. So
Do you have any of the October numbers at this point?
I won't have those until first thing next week, Dolly.
Okay, thank you.
But if you would like a preliminary, I'll be putting together that report either on Monday or Tuesday. I can send you out a preliminary so you can.
No, you're good. No,
start.
that's fine. Thank you.
Does the September report take whatever happened for any tuitions that's been allocated, or is that going to hit October?
Any of the tuitions on their
Whatever we've taken care
anybody
of.
that would have been allocated in August, it has been included in our EQUIS. But then anybody that goes in after the first of the year, I believe, will not be allocated yet. Let me see if we've got anybody starting up in the spring.
Now I'm thinking that January, February we're going to have kind of a spike with the allocations plus the administration hit. But I was wondering if we captured at this point any costs for tuitions that we've taken care of in this September already. For the fall entries.
Well, John, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but some of those folks have already been covered in this.
Okay, so we may have in October we may have a little uptick in that. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it might be. Let's see.
All right. Any other questions on the August or September update?
Hey Matt, this is David. Can I just ask a couple of general questions, and I apologize if they're out of order or not with the agenda?
I think you're in the Navy, so there should be admiral questions, not general questions.
Yeah,
but sure.
well, exactly. So one, just want to make sure, Colin, that the numbers that you're getting and presenting, if they've been reconciled to the state's financial workflow system, has that taken place?
Yes. So anything that's on these reports has been reported to the state in the work system. And then this is based off of the grant reports that come out of our books. That includes everything that EQUIS has spent and everything that we at the ad have spent. And so what happens is at the end of, after about, so today, Michael will be running those financial reports for October. They're being finalized. And then next week I'll go in and I will reconcile those against what our grants show. And the updated balances on those grants come directly from my contacts at the state. And so so to answer your question, yes. So it starts out with our SIMA books. It gets reconciled against what the state's got, and then it'll go into these financial reports for you guys, and I'll upload to Works.
Okay, perfect. That's great to hear. And again, back to Mike and the cost savings associated with him being dual hatted for a while. Certainly appreciate that, Mike. I know you're looking forward to having some relief there and the board selecting a new workforce director. Just want to make sure that with those salaries, that's going to match up for the year estimates that you guys have to the end of the fiscal year. Okay, you're on mute, I think.
Yeah, I worked really closely with Michael and Colin both earlier in the year on that when we looked at the WIOA budget to create the budget. So we'll be on par with administrative funds when we bring a director on. And also something that's going to help us a little bit more to the end of the year is we're applying for the National Dislocated Worker Grant for the BGCAP program. And that's going to actually free up a little bit more money for us, because through that grant, we'll bill approximately 30% of Rowley's time, a portion of the director, a portion of the workforce services manager, a portion of Colin's time will be offset by that National Dislocated Worker Grant. So that's actually going to free up additional workforce funds that we can roll over and carry into next year.
Okay, that's great. And then Jennifer, I just wanted to make sure that that you guys are all, that Equus is all whole right now with accounts receivable, that there's no outstanding payments. I know there's always a little bit of delay between invoicing and when we get the money from the state and then get paid out to you all, but I'm hoping that we're caught up on that at this point in time.
Yeah, I don't have the exacts in front of me, but we should be good. I think that Kathy Jo is talking with Colin about a little bit of an outstanding, but Colin and Kathy Jo are taking good care of it.
Okay, excellent. And then I know along with that, and again, this, Matt, I apologize, this may be not in the correct order. You all may be coming to this later. I know that in general, the state dollars have decreased gradually over time, with just based on the formula that's used on a national basis, which is dependent upon unemployment rates. And Kentucky said very low unemployment rates, and so the amount of workforce dollars distributed by formula and then what we receive has gone down in the past 3 years. But I know that there's kind of some movement underfoot to maybe hopefully work with the General Assembly to see if there's additional dollars that can be put in from the state, and just kind of what the strategy is from the Finance Committee, then leading up to the board's, strategic initiatives they may have in order to be able to advocate for or to go after some of those possible state funds.
No, I think that's a good discussion point. I know was it a couple of weeks ago, we were in Frankfurt with the other directors and some of the other workforces that Michael Gritton from the Kentucky Works Workforce Board was kind of talking about that, where it's gone down over years and how that is sort of affecting us. I think that everything we've talked about on our budget is based on what we know now, and we're being very conservative about staffing and committing to engaging so that we are not over budget for this year, but very carefully watching things for next year and trying to get the additional grants, as Mike was saying, so that we can take maybe some of the pressure off just that single thread of funding. But no, it is a good discussion point.
Yeah, and so I know along with that, one thing that we may need to coordinate a little bit with Mike and Colin is there are some funds that we're working on right now with the grant that we have for the Bluegrass Army Depot from the Office of Local Development and Community Cooperation. It's small amount, but there could be up to $100,000 for retraining for some of the employees that are at the Bluegrass Army Depot. Some that'll be paid for some of the work that Rowley's doing and that he's involved in it, but there may be some training dollars associated with that too. So I don't know how you fold that into the workforce budget, but I think it does need to be accounted for to show them that there is a contribution that's coming. There is a match that's required with that, just to in full disclosure, and I think that match associated with those OLDCC dollars would come from the Bluegrass Area Development District, but it certainly would be would help contribute to the efforts that are provided by the workforce board to the region. So just wanted to point that out.
And additionally, there's been work, myself and about 6 other of the workforce directors met with legislators and presented to the Interim Joint Committee on Workforce and Education. And we currently have a $26 million request into the legislators to assist with offsetting. Like you mentioned, the WIOA funds have dropped considerably over the years. We've lost about 50% of the funding over the last 20 or so years. So there is a request in with the legislators to seek some state funding to assist with workforce, because we simply just don't have enough money coming from the feds to do what we've historically done. I can say that from as far as a Bluegrass perspective, we requested an additional $2 million out of that money to go directly towards work-based learning, ITA training. And also we will be submitting a grant probably in December. It's a Quest grant. It's through some federal funding that the state got, and we'll be requesting $200,000 to train an additional 30 individuals with barriers and to get them into work-based learning opportunities and provide supportive services. So we're putting about $6,000 per person towards ITA training or work-based learning, and then $20,000 for supportive services. And we're hoping to be able to reach about 30 people who are coming from those high barrier populations to get them engaged back into the workforce. So there are some additional funding streams that we've looked to kind of offset and enhance what we have. And I'll also say, just so that everyone's current with it, as of today, we still do not have our fall allocation for dislocated worker and adult. Normally that comes around the 1st of October. The issue, and I think David alluded to it, is for the first time in, I think it's 35 years, our unemployment rate is below that threshold, that 6.5% threshold. So they still haven't given us our allocation for what our fall amount will be. So that NFA hasn't come out. So we're still kind of, they only have a certain number of days they have to get that amount to us, and we're getting really close to that 30 days being up.
Yeah, that's excellent information, Mike. I mean, I think it's very relevant, and you know, for Matt and John and for the workforce board. I mean, for Stacy to capture that and put out in the material that you all present to the public and to the elected officials, the governing board. I think it's very highly relevant to capture those additional initiatives that are going on. To just show that we're not like sitting back, you know, that your staff's not sitting back on their heels, just, you know, waiting for formula-driven federal dollars that come down through the normal process. That, no, actually we are actually trying to be innovative. We're trying to go after non-traditional source funding and looking for ways to serve the communities in a relevant way that makes a difference. So, you know, hats off to you, Mike, and for doing that and pushing for that as you were the interim director.
With all of that, is there any, Mike, with what's not yet been provided, is there any issue with cash flow at all? Just or
no, we're still good. As you can see with Colin's numbers that he's got, that initial funding that we got is usually enough to get us through November, December, and where we have been very much on the conservative side. Like we've not, you know, Jennifer, we've not been putting a lot of people through enrollments. We've not been placing people in work-based learning because really that July initial allocation that we got was mainly for personnel. But now that doesn't mean that the staff haven't been working really hard. Rolly can attest, we've done a lot of direct hires. Instead of putting people like in those work-based learning opportunities, we've actually got employers that are directly hiring folks. So instead of having that internship, that paid internship, a lot of employers have said, hey, look, we want the workers. So they're just initially doing that direct hire, and we're able to track that. Tiffany is tracking that as well as Jennifer and her staff. So we'll actually be able here in the next, probably about the first of the year, we'll be able to report to you on how many direct hires we've had for this first 6 months, because we're still doing the work. We're doing a lot of the, you know, the interview skills, the resume assistance, the labor market information, working with employers. I mean, shoot, I'm about to ask John if I can't get on the payroll at Amtech, because I've been bringing high school students over to get them through the Quick Start program. Me and Willie's just been hanging out a lot at Amtech, but you know, we're doing a lot of those things. We're kind of getting back to the grassroots of it, of, you know, not just, hey, we're going to use federal funds to do this, but like Rolly's been doing a lot of the job fairs and the working with the high schools. Tiff's been going out, staff have been going out, Jeremy's been in the high schools, Robin's been in the high schools with him, Jennifer and her staff. We're not just sitting back waiting for money. We're finding creative ways, innovative ways to utilize our existing resources, utilize our existing partnerships. You know, we had over 180 master agreements last year with businesses. So this year, instead of placing a lot of people in paid work experiences, we're saying, hey, look, you want to just hire some people. So we're getting it done. We're just getting it done in a different way until the cash flow situation becomes a little bit better.
No, thank you. Any other questions on that topic?
Do we have a date when possibly we'll have the invoices caught up with Equus?
So actually right now, Colin has everything ready to submit into to the work system through September. We just got the October invoice last week. The July through September has actually already been, I think, submitted into the work system. So we're just waiting for that one to get approved so we can pay out Equus for their August and September. We'll go back and get our June and July through that. But we're getting back to that point. And Colin and I have talked about this, and Michael and I have talked. The goal that we want to see is when Jennifer gives me the invoice on the 10th of the month, we want to have the previous month already processed. And we're getting really close to getting back in that right now. I know Colin just got October's last week. He and Tiff and Rowley will sit down probably next week or the week after and get that, so that when the November invoice comes in the 10th of December, we can already have that November ready to process. We want to get back to where it's one in, one out.
And just to confirm with what Mike said, that I will be working on the October draw for next week, so that we'll be, ideally, we're going to be doing it every month, no matter what. Now that we've gotten everything basically caught up, it's going to be a monthly process, just part of everyday business.
Thank you.
Things are kind of cleaned up.
It's a process.
All right. I think we need a motion, though, to approve these reports if there aren't any other questions.
I'll make a motion to approve the reports.
All right. Dolly, can I get a second?
Second.
All
Second.
right. So that does carry forward. I appreciate all the detail, everybody. Next topic, I don't think we've got anything in our packet, but was a review to kind of take us through some of the audits that have happened.
So I can, Colin, if you want to do that, or I can jump in, either one.
Mm-hmm. Well, all I've got really is just so we are in the audit right now, and they're focusing on the aging side of our business right now. They haven't touched on WIOA, but we had a situation this year where we changed auditors, and they kind of changed on us late, so there hasn't been a whole lot going on that front yet. I think December 14th is the next time they're going to be doing some field work, so we'll know more about that. And then,
and this is just financial audits, right? I mean, there's a separate process audit that happens, I feel like, every spring.
Correct. And so the monitoring that we've just been through with the state, so that what I was referring to is the audit by the third party. The state is finished up with our monitoring for fiscal year fiscal year 21, but we got a few things to work on, and we received information on what those things are, which we are meeting actually after this. Me, Mike, Tiff, and Michael are working together to address some of these things.
Are you going to share those in the next board meeting, or what's the...
we can do that. But basically what we're looking at is they came up with a finding. So on some of our travel documents, they were missing a MapQuest, which any trip you take in WIOA, you have to include an actual map that shows, if you're claiming 10 miles, you actually drove 10 miles. There's a map to prove it. Documentation in the work systems. I had to go back through during this process, and some of the information that they needed in the work system was not uploaded. Some of it was incomplete. And so what we've been working on, that's part of what our monthly meeting that me, Tiff, and Rolly and Hannah have going on, is to ensure that at least from what we get from Equus, everything is clean, and we get everything uploaded on a timely fashion. So basically documentation whenever they ran those drawdowns, they accepted and they got the money out to us. But when monitoring came in later, they found, oh, well, that documentation is incomplete. This MapQuest was missing. There's some discrepancies of, there's a few cents off here, there's a few cents off there. You're claiming 61.22, and he claimed 61.23 or something like that. So there's some of those. There's a few that are in the hundreds, in this discrepancies, a few are in the $100 bills. But we're gonna meet with each other here after this meeting here, and we have 30 days to address any of their remaining open items that have not been addressed. And most of that is documentation related.
It's we have 30 days because, and I'll just say, we get the initial findings, and there was one program issue, and that was with follow-up documentation, and that's actually not even an issue because we have a new policy in place. And what I think the problem is the monitors were looking at our old policy that we had previously. We updated that last year, so the programmatic finding will be gone. When the monitoring team came in, there were absolutely no programmatic findings, which is really a testament to the work that Tiff and Hannah and all of Jennifer's staff have done an excellent job of keeping us above board. Documentation's there, everything in the system's there, that we run a clean ship. And on the financial side, as Colin said, we've got the 6 findings. One of them is a very easy, it's an internal control. And we created a new policy for that. And I'll actually be getting with David. We need to get that internal control policy on the agenda for the December 13th ad executive committee so we can get that adopted, and that will knock out one whole finding. And the other ones were just about, making sure that we submit reports timely to the state. And that's one of the things that Colin has made a priority since he came on as workforce accounting officer. And that Michael and I have also worked very closely to make sure that we are timely with our reporting, that we are timely getting things into the system. Because previously that's what led to some of the issues, is things weren't getting done timely and then they were just getting done incomplete. But we have 30 days from the receipt. We're going to meet after this. It's just a little staff training we'll do, and we'll get those sent back in. And I think we'll probably have all of these resolved well within 30 days. So we should be moving forward, and we'll be out of this audit with a good, clean start with the state monitoring from the education workforce development side. And like I said, because some of the issues were just things that, not throwing it backwards, but when Kelsey was here, some things that occurred. But we've got policies and practices in place now that keep that from happening. That we've got internal controls now, that there are check marks and accountability measures that keep those things from becoming issues again. So I feel really confident, especially, we'll get a new director in, and one of my key things when we do get a new workforce director is maybe to make sure that they're a little more involved with the fiscal side than previous directors may have been, and that they understand that process and they can be not necessarily hands-on, but more involved in that process so that they know what's going on.
So who's going to oversee the internal controls that you all put into place?
So that will be our Chief Financial Officer, Michael Bushman, who is also the former WIOA accounting officer. So Michael will be kind of that accountability standard, and also the workforce director will have some measure of checks and balances just to make sure that things are being submitted correctly, timely. If nothing else, just to kind of prompt Michael to make sure that those things are in place. So, because the ad does serve as the fiscal agent for the local workforce development area. So we do rely on the CFO to make sure that those policies are in place, but we're kind of adding a little bit more of a skin factor there so that the workforce director is also involved in those conversations and that accountability, since they are responsible for reporting back to the governing board and to the workforce investment board on the programming and the financial accountability.
But one thing I would add to that, Mike, is that, and Dolly, I think you bring up a really good point. So one of the things that we did at the Bluegrass ad is we instituted a provision that allows our treasurer, who's now Mike Sanford, who on the civilian side, he works at the Mercer County Water District, but he has direct access to Michael Bushman and meets with Michael on a monthly basis and comes in to go over the monthly financials with him, without me being involved, without the board being involved, to get kind of the one-on-one, what's going on. So I would certainly encourage you all as finance committee members, or Matt as the chair, or as the treasurer for the workforce board, absolutely, direct contact with Colin is highly encouraged, and Colin, they can do a deep dive into any of these things. So it's just not just looking at the reports, but being able to provide the background information associated with it.
Yep, and I'll be happy to, if you want to email me, call me, anything, I'm available.
And as far as the new auditors, when did those go into place?
Let's see. I think
They started, I think we got notification from our last auditors in August that they weren't going to renew with us. And then we went through a procurement process and had a selection mid-September, and they started on October 1. And some of the background documents in October, and they started their field work about 2 weeks ago, or I think about 2 weeks ago, beginning of November, when they started their field work. And as Mike alluded to, they should be wrapping up their field work beginning in December with the aspiration of providing the report to the Bluegrass Ad Executive Committee on the 13th or the 15th, whatever the day of that meeting is, so that we can submit to the state auditor and to the LRC at the end of the month.
Thank you.
Right. Any other questions about the audit or audit process? I appreciate that detail.
Well, David was saying the 13th, as far as we're hoping for that information to be ready. And I was looking at our schedule. We got the 6th as far as a full board meeting. So we're not going to have that prior to that full board meeting, right?
No, but as soon as we do get that, I'll make sure that once that initial draft report comes in and we get that submitted, I'll make sure that gets to you guys as well. As soon as, because I think David signs off on it, and then we'll start getting it through the appropriate channels. But I'll make sure that you guys get that as well.
I mean, I just, the full board meeting, we like to get as much, update as possible. So if we got anything, that'd be great. But, if we don't, we'll just tell them what we know at the time.
Yeah, as Colin alluded to, a lot of it's aging. Right now we're just getting the trial balances together so they can do their audit. But so far there hasn't been any issues with workforce, any reconciliations that have been needed to be done. It's just been a lot of other departments.
And I think the fact that Colin has everything up to date with the Kentucky work system, will certainly make at least the workforce portion of the audit go, potentially, hopefully that portion of the audit will be done. They just can't sign off on the entire agency until they have all 3 departments finished. But the mere fact that Colin is up to date with the Kentucky work system will go a long way to providing you and your board the information that you need when you meet on the 6th.
Yeah. I just like to give everybody a good feeling at the full board meeting that no worries, don't worry, have a good holiday, that type of thing.
Absolutely.
All right. I don't think you need anything from us on that topic, right? That's more informational.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Okay. So next we have the meeting dates for 2024. That's the last page of our packet. So I personally am fine with the last 3. February 22nd, I do have a meeting in the morning, but if we could go maybe to the afternoon, I am fine with that. What I would like to say on these, I like the cadence, the third Thursday, but to Dolly's question a little bit earlier, if we are right at the threshold of having the last month's financial report, like you're going to have October here next week, let's let's not hurt ourselves, I guess, and let's make sure we've got the latest and greatest if we're going to be that close.
Well, Matt, just the simple rule is to get the prior month's report. That's generally got to be the 20th is whenever I will have that ready, the 20th or the 21st, because that's when the 20th is when the works reporting is due. So generally on the 19th or 20th, I'm working on uploading that information, and then right following that, I build the finance report.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that it looks like if we could go the afternoon of the 22nd, February 22nd, then that will fit that for you.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
but
just
the
a
rest,
last minute addition for Robin as she's putting together these agendas. That's only. We
yeah,
just
We usually send the packet out a few days in advance, so if we're cutting that wire, you may not have the packet.
so we just scoot it out a week then and do it the 29th instead of the 22nd. Everybody's got their calendars out, right? I mean, I'm not.
Are you just talking about for the February, or you want to move it out to the fourth Thursday of the month?
Well, I think that if I look at the May one, that's the 16th, so we're not even close there. So it almost sounds like we need to move this out to the last Friday of the month or
That's the
something
way
like that.
we used to do it, that it was the final Friday of the month. But someone mentioned not wanting meeting Fridays, but we could do potentially the last Thursday of the month
Yeah.
if you still wanted to avoid that.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I did talk to Ethan this morning, because he notified me he couldn't make it. And I asked him and he said he is okay with either Thursdays or Fridays. So if we do the final Thursday of the month, that would be February 29th,
Yeah.
May 30th, August 29th, and in November 22nd, because Thanksgiving would be the final, or the 21st. Thanksgiving would be the final Thursday of the month, the 28th.
Yeah, those dates work for me. So
Yeah, I'm fine with all of those.
Okay. And
Now,
still,
on that, so
Should
the
we
November
push-
one though, we would not have the final. Well, you just wouldn't be able to send the packet in advance. I guess is what we would
yeah,
say.
I
Yeah,
could.
should we push that November to December 6th?
That's probably a good idea.
Let me
That
check.
saves everybody a little stress, right? I don't know when the board meeting is.
The
Then
full board meeting is on December 4th.
Oh,
So you usually want to do the finance committee
Yeah.
before the full board.
yeah,
that one just may have to be an exception.
yeah. What I mean, do we want to do the? Do we want to do the finance meeting on the 4th, like in the morning? Is that too heavy? And then we do this in the full board meeting in the afternoon.
I think that would mess up your full board meeting packet. You wouldn't have that. Can we put that information in there that quickly?
It probably, there's not a lot that comes from this meeting to that meeting, because we do the finance reports on both of them. A lot of the stuff would be the same in both of them anyway. Unless there's something, the only thing would be if there's something special you guys discuss that you want to bring before the full board. So if that happens, and that doesn't happen very often, but if that happens, we could, I could send out an email saying, here's a last minute addition to the agenda.
I'm fine with however you all want to do it.
Yeah, let's. I just like having the most recent report. So, but I do like to be ahead of the board meeting. So let's. I mean, if you're going to prepare the packet for us both ways, we won't have any chance if we need an update before the full board. But let's look at that. Maybe let's maybe try that as a morning meeting. That meeting before the board. I mean, because you'll be preparing that same documentation for both of us.
Yeah.
For December, but I think the February, May, August dates all look fine. I mean, updated to the last Thursday of the month.
Okay, and so you want to do December 4th? Do you want to keep it at 10 a.m. or move it to 9 to have more time separation between the two?
Yeah, I'm fine with 9. I mean, Dolly, John, I mean, do you have a preference?
That's fine with me.
Yeah, I think that looks fine. Dolly, are you good?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll work.
All right.
That would give you some time to catch up on other work in between.
All right.
Okay, so we have just February 29th, May 30th, August 29th, and December 4th.
Okay.
So we
That
need,
sounds good. Anything other discussion items that we have or anybody else?
Matt, before we move on, we need motions on that, please.
Oh, okay.
I make a motion to approve the dates as listed.
Dolly, do you, thank you. John, do you second?
I'll second.
Thank you. There you go. That passes. All right. Maybe just a really quick on open discussion, Mike. I mean, you said you've got some interviews a little bit later, and I know I missed the last executive committee meeting. I mean, just like a 30-second update on you've got some finalists and
Yes, sir. We will be conducting 2 interviews. The committee narrowed it down to 2 individuals. We have the first interview will be this afternoon at 1:30. The second interview will be at approximately 3 o'clock. And we'll probably kind of stay to deliberate a little after that. And you know, I feel pretty confident we'll be able to talk about it and really compare and review the candidates and hopefully have a decision either later today or reconvene next week to do this. And I feel like we've got 2 really good candidates that we're going to interview, so I think we're in a really good place as far as that goes.
okay.
We
How's it
had
going with the Leos versus our board? Are people pretty much aligned in the selection, and that's all going really well? That's great.
Yeah, so it's really good. So from this board, you know, of course, Dolly and Connie Schnell were the 2 representatives, and then from the governing board, it was Judge Williams and Judge Gritton, and they were on the hiring panel when Amy was selected as workforce director. So they've got a great deal of experience in this, and you know, as I say, we're really blessed to have Judge Williams here in the Bluegrass area. He has a wealth of information, especially when it comes to human resources. So was really excited to have him as part of this panel as well. And then Dolly also from the website Dolly's done more interviews than I'll ever think about. So I've got a great group of folks that are helping through this process. And they've been wonderful to vet things through. And, you know, we've discussed the candidates as we move forward through the selection rounds. And it was pretty much unanimous consensus with every agreement. It's been a very smooth process, knock on wood. And like I said, I think potentially we could have someone starting really soon. So it's an exciting time.
Great.
We're still talking about the first of the year to actually start. Is that correct? Or are we going to start sooner?
So that really is going to depend. It'll depend a little bit on the candidate. It could depend on the candidate's time frame that they're available to start. You know, how much of a notice they have to give to a previous position, or if it's a candidate that doesn't have to give notice, that could speed things up a little bit. And then there's some funding issues that also fall within that versus how that looks. Worst case scenario, we'll have somebody in here January 3rd at 8 o'clock in the morning. Worst case scenario. But it is extremely possible by the next full board meeting we could have a new workforce director in place. A lot of it just will see how everything goes.
Sounds good.
All right. Any other discussion? Thank you, Dolly, for doing this. And all the staff too, but I know.
Yeah, Mike's done all the footwork, so thank you,
Thank-
Mike. And thank you, Colin. We forget to do that sometimes, but we appreciate
Yes.
all you do.
Yeah, thank you, Colin.
No problem. Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, if not, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Dolly.
I'll
John,
second.
thank you. Well, we are adjourned.